Welcome back to another edition of the Educational AD Podcast. We couldn't do these without the incredible support of our sponsors, and we want to take a moment to say thank you to all of them. First, thanks to our diamond sponsor, Varsity Brands, including BSN, Varsity Spirit, and Herff Jones. Varsity Brands, elevating student experiences in sport, spirit, and achievement. We also want to thank our platinum sponsors, including Ephesus Lighting, innovating a brighter future at every level. Gilman Gear, always a step ahead. Camp Mobile, where leaders communicate better. Hometown Ticketing, simple and easy online ticketing. Vital Signs, bring student achievements to life. And Gipper, sports graphics made incredibly simple. Thanks to all of our great sponsors. Welcome back to another episode of the Educational AD Podcast. Our guest today is truly a dear friend, John Drake. We called him Bo. John's a longtime football coach, athletic director, and now he is the assistant principal at Heritage High School in Wake Forest, North Carolina. John, good to see you, my friend.
Great to see you, old friend. I'm absolutely thrilled to be here. Been looking forward to this for a few weeks.
Well, as you know, the life of any administrator these days is very busy. So let's jump right into it. We always like to let our listeners have a chance to get to know our guests. So tell them a little bit about yourself, where you grew up, where you went to school and college, and how your love of sports, has led to this career in education.
Certainly. Well, I grew up in a little small town in northeastern North Carolina called Asst, and I pursued my football aspirations through high school and played in college for 4 years. And upon graduating, decided, well, I just want to keep playing football somehow. Since I'm not good enough to make the NFL, why not coach? So I end up going online. This is all the way back in 2000, the infancy of the internet, and find this job in Coral Springs, Florida. Had no clue where it was. It was 859 miles from my house. And I packed up my little truck and drove on down. And it's been a wild but fun ride, to say the least. And so, that, of course, is where you and I met. I believe it was probably my second year there. You came in as the head football coach. And we had a lot of great times building up kids and building a culture that really served as the basis and the foundation of what I would do later on in my career. And I'll get to more of those points later as we go on.
Well, I certainly appreciate those comments and look back on those days with great fondness. You're right. I think we came together at the right time. We're able to build something, and again, not a regret, but wish we could have finished that job that we started. But go and talk about how you made that transition from teacher coach into the world of administration.
Well, I tell you, a lot of times the old saying that if life gives you lemons, make lemonade. And so my whole goal had been my entire life was there's no bigger dream I had than to be the head high school football coach at my old high school where I grew up. And so after leaving Coral Springs, and I ended up fortunate to coach in the college level, D3 level, I was able to come back to North Carolina and be a part of a state championship winning team in Newbern, North Carolina. And after all these things, I ended up moving back home. And long story short, the job came open and I didn't even get an interview. And I remember sitting down with the powers that be, and I went, what in the world? Like, why did I not get an interview? And so, you learn there's politics and everything. And so from there, being very crushed. Well, what had happened was the principal I was working for knew the situation. She came to my classroom one day and between classes said, have you ever thought about administration? I said, no, never. She said, you would make a kick butt AP. She's like, there's this program through North Carolina State University, go Pack, and they turn teachers into principals and put them in high need areas. And she said, if you're able to get in, it's fully paid for. It's a full scholarship. And it's a 2-year program. It's one of the best in the nation. It's called the Northeast Leadership Academy. So I thought, what the heck, I got nothing to lose, might as well apply. Never thought in a million years I'd get in. Sure enough, get selected. And it was a 2-year program, and it was absolutely the most amazing experience. I was able to, the first year you teach and continue to teach and you take classes, and then the second year you do a paid internship. And it really and truly changed my life in a multitude of ways, not just professionally, but personally as well. It really was a tremendous experience.
So you were actually placed in, I believe it was kind of a rural high school that had been, having a hard time finding administrators. Talk about that experience for a little bit.
Yeah, and that was the purpose of the program, because it was so hard to get people to come to a lot of these rural places. And, every part of the nation has its own different dynamics and problems and pluses and minuses. But in rural Eastern North Carolina, unfortunately, unless you're in agriculture and you farm, there's really not anything else there industry-wise. There's not a lot of employment opportunities. So you have high rates of poverty. You have high rates of just a lot of tough situations. And so, what I found is, I was familiar with those areas because I grew up in something very similar, but really those kids are the same kids that are at, the most elite schools all across the nation. Kids are kids. They want to be taught. They want to be, they want to learn. They want to succeed. They want to grow. And so very rewarding experience to say the least, to be able to really and truly help people and to understand where they're coming from as well.
Oh, absolutely. And, for yourself, great professional growth opportunity, and apply those lessons learned at new schools. I have a hard time calling you John because I called you Bo for just so long. So
you can call me Bo. Only friends and family call me Bo. So you're good.
I feel privileged. And well, Bo, in our profession, we always talk about the importance of leadership and especially mentoring that next generation. So I'm always curious, who are some of your mentors, either, people growing up, teachers, coaches, family members, or even people that you might have worked with or worked for. The expression I like to use is, I still hear those voices in my head when I'm talking to a coach or a kid or sometimes a parent. So whose voice do you still hear?
Well, I'm not to flatter you, but I mean, you're certainly one of them, and I'll go back to that. I'll never forget, we were sitting in a steakhouse, the ones where you can throw the peanuts on the floor, as you're not breaking the law. And you looked at me and you said, "You're going to be the defensive coordinator." And I was like, "Me? Like, I don't know enough about all that." You're like, "You're going to be fine." So I've had a lot of people along the way that believed in me when I did not believe in myself. And I think those are the people that can really lift you to places you can never get there. Just like a great coach does. That great coach lifts your level of your ability. He lifts your level. He or she lifts your ability to do better than what you could have done by yourself. And so, I was very blessed and fortunate. My mother was an educator. My father was too. So growing up and understanding the craft in that way, along the way, I just, countless others. And here's the thing, I think people forget, you don't get to the top and then you just stop growing, okay? You're either living or dying, as they said in the Shawshank Redemption. So you want to continue to live. You want to continue to grow, have that growth mindset. Even now, the principal I work for now, Mr. Scott Lyons, is one of the best professional mentors I've ever had. He has helped me. He's been patient with me, has helped show me to grow. This is only my 4th year in administration in this role. And so, to be honest, I don't know if people are familiar, there's a series on Apple called Ted Lasso, where they take this football coach and he goes to England to become a soccer coach. He knows nothing about soccer, but he knows people, he knows culture, and he knows how to build and invest in those. And so those have been the absolute people that have really shaped me. And probably one of the other big person was Dr. Bonnie Fuzzarelli from the NELA North Carolina State program. She believed in me at a time when I did not believe in myself, and helped show me a lot of this stuff was possible. And the great thing about that program was they then assigned you a mentor for a year, like a coach. And she assigned me a gentleman named Mr. Kevin Hill, who actually helped me, find my way and help me to really be where I'm at now too. And he's somebody I still talk with monthly. if there's ever anything that's going on in your head, that a situation at your job that you can't quite talk to about anybody, because especially in leadership, it gets lonely. You have those people to call and text and say, what would you do here? What's your thoughts? And 9 out of 10 times they're going to, show you something that you weren't really seeing because you're in the situation. So, those mentors are very, very valuable. And without them, I don't think anybody can be successful. I really don't.
Al, I appreciate those kind comments. And again, it's always nice to hear about those individuals that have helped us. It's a great reminder that, no matter where we're at, we didn't get here by ourselves. You've had an opportunity to see a lot of different programs, certainly how we did things at CSCA. You spent some time at Westminster Academy down in South Florida. As you said, you've coached at the college level and been involved with some very successful programs. One of the things we're trying to do with the podcast is share best practices. So what's one or two things that, you've either seen at a school or maybe something that you've actually done as an administrator? What's a best practice where you go, boy, this team, this school, they really hit it out of the park?
Yeah, I'll be honest, I've probably from a lot of my experiences, I've probably learned how not to do things more than anything, which can be very valuable. And there's been times when I've been at places where it literally felt like I'm here for a reason, and I know I can make a difference and impact, but not everybody seems to be on board. And so, and then when you transition and contrast those to the places that have been really amazing, the amazing places always have the same thing in common. And I think it all comes down to investing in people, because when you invest in people, you always have a return. When as an administrator, if I already know Mr. Smith very well from just having casual conversations, never solicited conversations, hey, where are you from? Hey, do you have any kids? Hey, you'll find something out about everybody. And then next time you see them, make a point. I think getting to know your building is one of the bigger things. Walk that building. I try not to sit in this office very long at all unless I have to, probably because I have undiagnosed ADHD or something anyway, but I've got to move around. And so I want to get around and I want to engage with people and find out more about them, because there's going to come a crucial time when there's going to be a situation that happens, a hiccup, a problem. And if the only time you've ever had interaction with, people that you're trying to, work with is something negative, it eventually causes that cancer that I think it doesn't take long to build up within a school, and animosity, and then that could just cause a creation of problems that you don't want to have. And so the great schools have always you really saw they cared about you as an individual and cared about you as a person, and I've always tried to replicate that wherever I've been.
These great advice. It starts with the people, no matter where you're at. We've been asking our ADs about their response to COVID. And we've certainly seen a wide variety of methods to handle it from state to state, even within states, from one school district to another. And to our listeners, we're recording this during the first week of November. So things may have changed by the time you're listening to this. But right now, what's happening in North Carolina? What's happening at your school with regards to return to school as well as return to play?
Well, yeah, it's definitely varies from everywhere across the board, especially even K through 12. Here in North Carolina, our elementary and middle schoolers are just coming back now in person. And they're not all fully in person. They put them in pods. Pod A goes 1 week, and then they go home. Pod B goes a week, and then they go home. Pod C comes a week. Here at the high school, we have actually been set online learning since March, and it hasn't stopped, and it will resume back in person January 16th. And I think the reason being for that was maybe, a high school, student can have a little better grasp of the material online than a younger student, certainly. But, for all intents and purposes, it's been a tough transition, because I'll say the job changed overnight from, like me, I love and I feed on that social and that people piece. And now all of a sudden everything's virtual. You're not able to be in contact with people, and you're answering your phone and nonstop emails, and you're sitting in front of this computer. And it has been a whole shift of how you've had to adapt. And I think that's another mark of a great administrator is you have to be able to improvise, adapt, and overcome. And if you can't do those things, then you're going to be left out in the cold. You're going to really struggle. And so, you've got to reconfigure a game plan sometimes. You may not have all the chips that you want. And, I think, unfortunately, a lot of times educators will get this, I call it, probably a label that's probably not correct of people view it as complaining all the time. And it's not so much that. It's just people care a lot about kids and they care about education. They want to see things done well. But sometimes, like with COVID, there's no direct answer. It doesn't matter if the state would have decided to bring everybody back in person or if you would have kept everybody home, there's going to be a portion that's not going to be happy or people that are affected either way. So, I mean, there's, unfortunately, it's just, as they say, it is what it is. And you just got to make the best of the situation and, do what you can to try to make it, more comfortable. I will say, I honestly feel like I've transformed into Dr. Phil because a lot of times I'll answer this phone and I'll talk with people and parents, especially that are they're just had enough and they're just upset and their kids are upset and they have anxiety and I just try to just be a listening ear and just talk them through it. I know they're not mad at me. They're just upset at the situation. People that have businesses or jobs they can't go to now and things have happened at home. And, you really, again, invested in people. You just always keep that at that forefront and, have that understanding and compassion, try to help where you can. I think that's probably the most, crucial thing that we can do. Just be a little more understanding, even if that's not your default. You really need to just focus. And there's an old saying, I can't remember which book it is. I think it may be Stephen Covey, but understand before being understood. And if you keep that as your rule, to understand before being understood, you're going to end up a lot better in any process, especially crucial times like now where things are just, really going haywire.
And I love that. Consider it stolen. So what's going on with regards to athletics and sports?
Well, here in North Carolina, they moved a bunch of sports to the spring. Football got moved to the spring, or actually I'd say late winter. They're going to start in February. Basketball and volleyball is going on. They are going to play a schedule. What they decided to do here was just play like a conference only schedule. You're just playing some of your local opponents. There's not going to be playoffs or championships or any of that stuff. So based on that, we're trying to get back in it. But of course, it remains to be seen. No contests have taken place here within our state as of yet because, with everything going on with COVID and, the big question is, well, how do you, we're not like, Florida State where we can go test every athlete every other week, every other day and see if they have it. We can't do that. That's not feasible in most high school settings. So, it's still, we're trying to get there. But again, those are the powers that be above me. And I don't have much say so in those. So.
Well, sounds like you're doing a great job academically. You've got a system and you're working that. And, good luck with sports here in Florida. Obviously, we're trying to wrap up a fall season. Many schools chose to opt in from a playoff standpoint. The schools down in our old area, South Florida, they just recently returned to classes. And so they're kind of in that local regional championship mode sort of thing. And, we'll see what happens with winter sports. Bo, I think I know the answer, but I'll ask the question anyway. We've asked our ADs, what's your favorite part of the job? And invariably they say, as they should, oh, it's the kids, the relationships. But digging a little bit deeper, what are some of your favorite things about being the assistant principal at Heritage? What gets you excited about coming to school each day?
Well, you know what? I think it's almost transitioned a little bit because when I was coaching directly, you had a lot more contact with kids and every contact was very positive. It was, you're coaching them, you really get to invest them. And now on this other side, as an administrator who has to delve out discipline a lot of times, my only contact with them is the opposite of what I just told you about. It is a negative connotation a lot of times. But what I found is that there are some that I can certainly reach. I try to reach every single one of our kids. And, I always try to make them think a little bit before they, come out of here. For instance, it's a little different experience. So here, I'll give you a prime example. So let's say, for instance, this would be a great little thing for coaches they can use. Let's say student athlete has a problem with a teacher. The teacher put them out of class because the student, said something back, or, they just have a disagreement. There's a personality conflict, something going on. So a lot of times with those, I'll bring the student in and I'll have them look at this picture here. And this is one of those old optical illusions, okay, where you're going to see either a young woman or an older lady, okay? And generally what I'll do is I present this, most kids, because their brains are not fully developed, they'll see the younger woman first. And I'll say, okay, yeah, there's the younger woman. Then I'll say, do you see the older woman? And they go, no. And when you finally point it out to them, the point I make to them is there's two different perspectives sometimes. Your teacher has this perspective. Okay, both of you are looking at something. Both of you are right, it's there, but you need to understand each other before being understood, and it goes back and ties it in. And a lot of those aha moments, I think, because a normal student's been treated just, here's your detention, get out of my office. And again, comes back to investing in people, comes back to understand before being understood. And, I think those are the big things that I really enjoy, is seeing that aha moment. So then down the road, when I see them in the hallway and they're like, what's up, Mr. Drake? And I'm like, what's going on, buddy? You staying out of trouble? I'm doing great, man. And that's awesome to me, and I think that, and then probably when the crucial situations happen, because you get to see some very tough stuff sometimes in this role, stuff that you wouldn't wish on anybody, and people go through situations, and being able to be there for people. As a little kid, I always wanted to be a superhero and save the day. And every once in a while I get to do that here, and that's cool, so that's what I really, it makes it all worth it. It always seems to come at a time when the work has been nonstop, and you sit there and you drive to work one day and go, man, am I really supposed to be doing this? I'm about to lose my mind. And then boom, something great will happen to you that day. And then you just go, you know what? It is all worth it.
That is just so very cool. Just a great example of someone coaching. You're coaching in your office, and you see those small victories that we used to talk about. Just like when that kid makes, finally makes that first tackle, or hits the lev sled properly. Okay. Great transition. We've been asking our athletic directors this question. When we started these podcasts back in June, the events of Minneapolis and Atlanta, and even, now more recently, Wisconsin, we're certainly in the forefront. And this idea of social awareness and social justice, was on everybody's mind, as it should be. And my question to our ADs was this: what are some things that we can do as administrators, as coaches, ADs, assistant principals? What are some things that we can do better with our community in this area of social awareness?
Yeah, there's a lot of things. And I think that, we have to certainly understand. I think a lot of times coaches get this reputation sometimes as, well, this is how it was done to me. This is how life was when I was. So therefore, I'm just going to keep doing it this way. If it ain't broke, don't fix it. Those old sayings. Just like when I first was a young coach, I thought I had to be a hybrid of the drill instructor from Full Metal Jacket and Vince Lombardi. And, I didn't have to be that. I just needed to be me, And I think, especially with, our country and things going on, again, you have one mouth and you have two ears for a reason, which means you should listen more than talk. And I think when people actually sit down at the table and will listen to one another and listen to people who may have a very extremely different perspective and understanding of life than what you had, you can really start to learn and grow. And then from there, that's when I think things can really blossom and become, absolute beautiful moment, and can allow for, great change that is just, an indelible and positive for every person. And I think we as coaches, I do think we do understand that, because if you look at a football huddle, it's comprised of kids that come from every walk of life, every situation. And if you were to poll them about what their, opinion is on X, Y, and Z, you get a bunch of different ones. But in that huddle, we're all working toward a common goal. And so my advice is, we all need to come to the table. We all need to find the common goal. We all need to listen more than we need to talk sometimes. And then let's find that common goal and move forward and become better people in general.
Great, great advice. Thank you for sharing that. Well, Bo, this has just been great reconnecting. I know we had a super long phone conversation the other night,
Yep.
but we're not done yet. We always like to wrap up with what we call the new athletic director's toolbox. You are a seasoned educational professional and leader, but right now I'm going to challenge you with sending out a brand new AD on their very first job. But I'm only going to let you put 3 things in their toolbox. What 3 items are going to go in Bo Drake's athletic director toolbox?
All right, let's see. I'm gonna say number 1, you need to surround yourself with great people, whether that be mentors. If let's say you're a young AD, and your romantic interest is budding into the positive marriage, possibly a marriage or something like that. You need to make sure that you have a spouse that really understands the rigors and demands. I have absolutely very blessed. My wife Miranda, she understands this job and the amount of time it takes in, and you have that understanding, and which I would say, like you with Jan, we outkicked our coverage, as they say. And so I think that is surrounding yourself with great people at home and at work. 2, investing in people. You got to invest in people, get to know people. Even if you're not a social butterfly kind of person, you can do little things. For instance, just handwritten thank you notes or just appreciation. Hey, Mr. Jones, thank you for covering on hall duty the other day, or thank you for covering the gate at the basketball game the other night. You're absolutely awesome. And you put that little thing right there makes Mr. Jones go, oh my gosh, like I didn't know he or she even cared. Okay. So that's the investing in people. And, the other thing is, I'd say if there's not a culture at your school, first of all, understand what the culture is. And if there is not one that can be put in place or can be helped change, then, try to get people on your team to help make that shift and make it a good one. Each school, I always say, it's almost like its own little country. It's got its own little do's and do nots. You don't do this here, you do that here, and that's okay. You don't need to come in and take over, but at the same time, appreciate maybe some of those older things. Bring back that team that is the 20-year anniversary of a state championship team that nobody's really talked about. The trophies collecting dust. Reach out and find this. It's pretty easy to find people now with Facebook and the internet and everything else. So reach out, bring those people back, make people feel a part of something. Because the more people that feel a part of something, the more likely they are to want to give to it. And, so those are probably not 1, 2, 3 that I could even put in order. And I probably just completely rambled, but it sounds like pretty good wisdom from where I'm sitting.
Not at all. I think all of them were spot on. And I especially like that 20-year anniversary, as you and I have talked about. We've got one coming up this summer. Hopefully we can make that 20-year reunion of Band of Brothers football come true. Well, John, how could one of our listeners get in touch with you? You've shared some really great stuff today. If someone was interested, how do they get a hold of you?
Yeah, certainly. Probably the easiest way is email. I think everybody's connected to email here. And my email is J as in John, C as in Charles, Drake, D-R-A-K-E. So it's JC Drake at WC as in Charlie, PSS, which stands for Wake County Public School System, WCPSS.net. So JC Drake at WCPSS.net. And I'll be happy to answer any questions or whatever I can do to help anyone. I've always remember the people that helped me, and I always want to give back. Again, we always want to pay it forward. And yeah, more than happy, anybody I can be of any help, or if they just want something to laugh at, hey, I'm here for that too. So
lots and lots of wisdom. So reach out to him, my friends. Bo, again, great reconnecting with you. To our listeners, thanks as always for tuning in. Remember, the Zoom recording of this podcast is also available on the Educational Athletic Director FIAAA YouTube channel. So take a look and come back again next time for another episode of the Educational AD.